Hi everybody, and welcome to Josiah is Right. So as a kid, I recall reading the story X-Men God Loves, Man Kills. One of the all-time best titles ever, by the way. It was probably the first graphic novel I'd ever read.
It was even actually printed as a graphic novel, down to having chapters, although it isn't all that long. About 60-something pages.
A few years back, my friend Daniel got me a gift card for a comic book shop called The Secret Headquarters in Echo Park in LA. For those of you not familiar with that part of LA, think a lot of bars and dudes with mustaches. A super hip place. There, I purchased this. A brand new copy of X-Men God Loves, Man Kills.
It is by my all-time favorite X-Men writer, Chris Claremont. Mr. Claremont weaved the richest fantasy, sci-fi soap opera I will likely ever read, and he did so for 17 years.
X-Men God Loves, Man Kills features characters from those 17 years, but feels like it's out of a parallel universe, as if it's a movie adaptation, but a movie adaptation that's extremely faithful to the source material.
It was itself loosely adapted for X-Men too.
Claremont wanted to tell a story beyond the comic books, i.e. something more adult.
There's a reason why God Loves was done as a graphic novel without the code seal. We did not want to restrict ourselves. Our feeling was, if you're going to do an adult story, it isn't a matter of nudity or cursing, it is a matter of concepts. It is a matter of dealing with visions of people and of social realities that might be considered inappropriate in a standard comic book, simply because the kids who read it might be too young and might draw the wrong impression from the story. Chris Claremont.
The story was originally going to be drawn by Neal Adams. However, at the time, he was taking a principled stand on not doing work for hire. Basically, he took this assignment understanding that it wouldn't be work for hire, because he's since done work for hire, but he thought this one wouldn't be work for hire, and therefore, since it turned out it was work for hire, he decided not to do it.
I'm sure that when the promise was made, it was a hopeful promise. One of those promises that turned out to be, I'm sure I can take care of it, but guess what? Those legal eagles got involved and said we can't do that because it'll set a dangerous legal precedent if we grant some freedom and equality to a freelance. It'll spread like an infection and we don't want that to happen. Neal Adams.
I've met Neal Adams. We got into an argument. Our entire conversation was 3 minutes. 2.5 minutes of that was the argument. He's a prickly guy, but a really principled one, and actually, in a weird way, a nice one. Despite completing breathtaking pages and his desire to draw Wolverine, which he'd never got to do at that point, he had to walk because of principle.
Adams had actually completed 6 pages at this point. The pages are gorgeous, but dramatically different than the art that the young, untested Brett Anderson created. Neal Adams is the better artist, but he may not have been right for this particular book. Anderson brought it to life. His art was more contemporary, less illustrated, less refined, sure, but somehow more real.
Anderson was originally offered the opportunity to be the regular X-Men artist. However, he didn't feel he was good enough to do it. He did feel he could handle a graphic novel, however.
Perfect. It's the X-Men, it's a one-shot, I get to take my time on it. Brett Anderson. And of course, if you haven't read it, spoilers. The story begins with the murder of 2 mutant children. Magneto then investigates the crime. Everything is tied to William Stryker, a hateful man hiding behind the good name of God and playing up the fears of his followers in their hatred of mutants. Stryker has a hit squad of purifiers who hunt and kill mutants. The book refers to them as muties and equates the use of that word to the use of the N-word. It is touchy and might actually be crossing the line, but the message is nonetheless powerful. After a televised debate with Stryker, Professor X is kidnapped thanks to the Purifiers. Magneto and the X-Men must therefore team up to rescue him. Stryker then hooks Professor X up to a machine that will kill all mutants. The Magneto-led X-Men are able to stop Stryker at his rally, though it's technically a cop who really does so. In the end, Professor X is quite troubled, as are all of the X-Men. Magneto offers that he and Charles should finally join sides. Professor X declines. Magneto leaves, feeling more justified in his own cause, thanks to the radical nature of Stryker and his remaining followers.
The story is very of the moment, but also transcends time. It is essentially the story of a religious leader manipulating his followers in order to justify his own hate. In the 1980s, TV preachers were a big thing. A big thing. And later, a lot of them were discovered to have skeletons in their closet.
Stryker is this guy in the movies. Not a faithful adaptation, but an excellent one, so I'll forgive that sin. Stryker uses religion to justify his own hate of mutants. To manipulate his followers into going as far as killing children, seen in the opening pages. And his own child before the events of the comic book. He is the definition of a cult leader. On the other side, Professor X, a leader who uses hope and ideas to motivate, not dread and fear. Of course, there's also Magneto.
The third other side? 3D object? Maybe a cube?
Magneto is confronted by his own methods and is conflicted, yet reassured, extremism feeding extremism.
Within the X-Men, there are various leaders who lead in very different ways. The previous mentioned Professor X and of course Magneto, his direct opposite. Can good guys be cult leaders as well? Or at least people with good intentions? Both Magneto and Professor X see themselves as doing good, doing right. And of course, Stryker does as well. But do they manipulate their own followers to do so? That's the question. What if others exploit their causes and their way of doing things to justify what they want? Their goal in the end. That's what X-Men God Love, Man Kills explores. The true depths of leadership, the dark side of it, and what it's really all about. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what are your thoughts on X-Men God Loves and Man Kills. What are your thoughts on graphic novels and comic books? And where do you feel this fits into the X-Men continuity? Thank you guys so much. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Bye!